Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Pivot for Pandemic session at the Festival of Innovation. My name is Xuan. I'm a reporter at GovInsider, and I'm so excited to welcome all of you to our session this afternoon. Over the next hour, we will be hearing how agencies have pivoted to cope with the increased demand for digital services during COVID-19 and the basic principles that have underpinned their success. A huge thank you to our partners at Pure Storage for making this possible. And later on, we'll hear from Mr. Sunil Chavan, who is Vice President of FlashBlade APJ, about how governments can transform data into value. We have a fantastic lineup of speakers with us today. First, we have Mr. Hiroki Yoshida, who is the Director of Digital Government and IT Industry Policy of Japan's Ministry of Economy, Trade, and Industry. Next, we have Her Excellency Sandra Jensen Landi, who is the Danish Ambassador to Singapore. We also have Ms. Talitha, who is Product Manager at the Open Government Products Unit of GovTech Singapore. Now, without further ado, let me introduce our first speaker for the session. Hiroki will be sharing Japan's GovTech strategies for tackling COVID-19. Hiroki-san, over to you, please. Just waiting for a second as Hiroki-san brings up his slides. I'm really looking forward to this presentation personally. It seems we have run into a bit of technical difficulties at the moment. Just bear with us for a second as we head on and bring this together. All right, I would like to invite our next speaker for the moment. We have Her Excellency, the Ambassador of the Danish Ambassador to Singapore. She'll be sharing Denmark's top digital government secrets to success. Denmark has topped the UN's e-government rankings for the second year in a row, and that's really exciting. So, Ambassador, over to you.
Thank you. Now I hope I can get this to work. Do you see my slides? Yes, I hope so. Okay. Well, dear fellow panelists, participants behind the scenes, innovators from all over the world, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. And thank you for inviting me to be a part of this live innovation festival. I'm Sandra Jensen Landi, and I'm the ambassador of Denmark to Singapore. I think that there has really never been a better time to discuss innovation, digitalization than right now. This pandemic has really catapulted all of us into a whole new reality where we need to use these tools every day, whether it's this way of meeting or whether it's in our government's efforts to control the pandemic. So I'm very happy to have this opportunity to share some of the lessons that we have learned so far. But before looking at the digital response of Denmark on the crisis, then I just want to show you a little bit about what is the Danish context. There are essentially three ingredients in the Danish digitalization and innovation: people, partnerships, and basic trust. Those three elements are what we are focused. It's a people-focused approach. We partner in every way possible, and we enjoy a high level of trust to begin with. We also have a very flexible labor market and a well-educated population. We're also one of the most digital countries in the world. We have a very digital savvy population. And our public sector is also, and private sector, of course, is also quite digital at this stage. So now we started this journey a while back, as you can see here, we started focusing on the partnerships and the digital collaboration all the way back in 2001. We developed some ways of signing digitally as a citizen for all your important papers. We were using emails in the public sector, and that has been a journey that has taken us through a lot of steps where, especially in the relationship between the citizen and the state, it has gotten more and more digital. So today we, for example, have this digital mailbox, all of us, where we get letters from government or from our private bank or pension or whatever, and where everything is stored and saved. And when you send messages from there, it's automatically signed, so you don't have to prove your identity further. So the policy is aimed at putting each citizen in control of his or her own data. It's very central that as a citizen you can access government services whenever you need it. So it's 24-hour approach. So you can also, for example, use this mailbox to upload your own safe documents. That's is one of the very smart features. So as mentioned before, we are ranked very, very high. For the second time in a row, we're ranked #1 in the e-government according to the UN ranking. So 3 key services are essential for this. The digital post I already mentioned, 92% of the citizens are registered, and people are very happy with the way that functions. It's 4.9 million citizens that are above 15 years. They have a mandatory digital letterbox, and it really works very, very well. The numbers is that 168 million digital letters were sent from the public authorities in 2019. So it's really also quite an environmental approach. It saves us a lot of paper when we work digitally instead. We also have a platform called Borger.dk, which basically means citizen.dk, where you can access all sorts of services and information from the state or the municipality of relevance to you. We also have an easy ID, which is called NemID, which is a way of signing that we use for logging on to all sorts of different platforms, whether it's your private bank or any sort of communication with the state or the government. And 90% of the Danes are currently very satisfied with that system. It was initially a paper-based system, but today it's an app. And yeah, as I mentioned, you use it for all sorts of things. So from that basis, I just wanted to give that picture because that's really where we started from. So of course, that's a very favorable starting point for any government who needs to give a digital response to the COVID-19, because people were already connected and already used to using all these resources. But if we zoom in on what we did then, we instantly applied the digital technologies in order to support these public health responses that the government undertook in order to limit the pandemic. So we started informing citizens about the COVID-19 throughout. The first thing you received was a digital letter from the government in this digital mailbox I mentioned before, that also gave updates on what are the current rules and regulations and what are the guidelines for you as a citizen. There were also updates shared via SMS and in a lot of other ways. 4.5 million citizens received this first letter, and a lot of people have subscribed to news from the state in other digital ways. In the health sector, we enabled telemedicine so that patients and doctors could carry out their consultation via video, because people were not allowed to go and see their doctor. In the education system, of course, there was a massive boost because the schools closed and all the teaching had to be done from a distance. That was also the there was a whole new digital technology there that enabled the online teaching. And in the public and private sector, like everywhere else, people used video meetings and conferences and so on. So that wait, oh no, right. Let me go back to where I was. So we also made a national contact tracing app, very similar to what Singapore has done. Actually, there was a broad political support to this. It was launched mid-June. So not the first thing that was done. And one of the reasons was that we spent a little more time developing the app in order to make sure that the necessary trust was created in the process, so that people weren't worried that their data was being stored or shared inappropriately or anything like that. It is a voluntary app, and as I mentioned before, the data there's a lot of focus on data protection, and data are deleted after 2 weeks. Yeah, and we're trying to explore how it can link to other services across the borders, so in other European countries. So that's sort of the next step. How can we take this out of the country? There's an agreement among EU member states on the technical specifications. So this would really pave the way for another type of tracing. So, as I mentioned, the trust was really essential in the approach. It has been a success in the sense of more than 1 million people have downloaded it. So that covers around a quarter of the population who are above 15 years old. So the process was the people who developed the app were very focused on having an inclusive process to hear from different parties along the way in order to make sure that the standards were high, security and privacy particularly, and that people wouldn't worry about the government surveillance elements. That's, even though we're a very digitalized country, that's one of the things that people continuously worry about, and that is so central in everything the government does. When in all the digital approaches in our countries, is how can you use all the tools most effectively, and at the same time make people feel confident that they are not being surveyed and that the data are not shared in an inappropriate manner. So that's it. So even though the crisis is not over yet, I think there's some lessons we can already learn. I did mention some of the enablers already. We had a high digital infrastructure, we have a high level of trust, and we have a pretty efficient and effective public authorities that were used to communicating with citizens in a digital way. So there was a good starting point, of course. But I think it's really this approach of focusing a lot on maintaining trust, on putting people in at the center, so that it's always about what is not convenient for the government or for the state, but what's convenient for people. And then to try to explore all the partnerships across the new actors that you can work with, and already, like, we were on, the app was built on platforms that were already in place, and there are lots of new partnerships that keep on evolving. So those were the main lessons. I'm sure we will have many more to share in a year from now, when we know much more about how we handle this pandemic in the long run, also digitally from governments. But I think these are the key lessons I want to highlight right now. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ambassador. Thank you for sharing, the sequence that Denmark has had to attain that sort of digital government success. And I love what you said about how trust is really the bedrock of all the services that you provide for the people. And for now, we're ready to bring on Hiroki-san, who will be sharing Japan's GovTech strategies for tackling COVID-19.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and sorry that I'm traveling connectivity. So yeah, okay. So I will share
No
my
worries at
slides
all.
first. Yeah. Can you see this one?
Perfect. I can see
Yeah,
your
okay.
slides.
So my name is Hiroki. I'm a director of IT project office in METI, Ministry of Trade and Industry. And so I will show you how we try to tackle with COVID-19 this time. And also we have many troubles inside the government. So I want to share such kind of things now. And so first, we established METI-DX office in July 2018. And we tried to digitalize government administration, especially for corporates. And also we try to change our IT development method from waterfall to agile type development. And also we try to change data management and utilization and nurture IT capabilities inside our ministry. And so in COVID-19, we have many learnings and also issues. So I want to explain what kind of learnings we have. First one is we provided public services through the private services to reach citizens more quickly. And also, we realized that open data and open source is a good combination to develop new services very quickly. And also, yeah, we also developed contact tracing app in Japan. So we share the case in Japan also. And so, however, we also have some issues. First one is that so digital IDs are not provided to all citizens and the businesses. That's why not all people and the businesses cannot access digital services directly. So this is one issue. And another issue is that our digital system is so fragmented that we cannot connect data with each other efficiently. So we need to change such kind of situation now. And I think all these root causes are from not enough IT capabilities inside the government in Japan. So we need to tackle with this issue also. So I want to explain one by one from the next slide. So first, we provided public services using private services. So one example is we provided government business support information via LINE, which is one of the most major messaging services in Japan. By doing so, so small and medium-sized enterprises can access this support information more quickly. And also, we provide remote medical consultation support via Mediplat. This is one of the startups in Japan. So by collaborating with private companies, we can reach each citizens more quickly. So this is one example of our success. And another example is that open data and open source have very strong way of developing digital services quickly. So for example, Tokyo Metropolitan Government created the IT dashboard of the COVID-19, and they provided free source to all the prefectures. And by doing so, all prefectures copied this source code and they created the dashboard in a month. So this is very quickly and yeah, exciting event in Japan. And also, we created a search engine for private free services for COVID-19 action. So many private companies provided free and discounted services to the businesses and the citizens to tackle with COVID-19, but each information is fragmented in each corporate site. So we try to create the data sets, open data sets, and also created the search engine collaborating with Civic Tech. However, so other local governments copy this free source of the search engine, and they also created for their local service search engine. So this is another example. And by using open source system, we can release more quickly from prototype level to, and also we continue to develop services. So this is very important point because in government sense, we try to create completed services first. However, it doesn't work in the emergency. So in that case, we should release as quick as possible, and we try to help people. So in that sense, I think open source is very important, and also by doing so, we can utilize open data more effectively. And another example is GovTech collaboration for contact confirmation app we call Cocoa in Japan. So in this case, Civic Tech prototype this app, and after that, company succeeded this source and developed this app for the citizens, and the government is operating now. So we are using SDK by Apple and Google, and not take any individual data for privacy. And also, this app is already downloaded by 16 million people. And so movie theaters now demand consumers download this app for preventing infection. And also this source is open by GitHub, on GitHub. So this is another success of us. However, there are many failures in COVID-19. Actually, we are criticized by citizens that our inefficient supply of masks and the cash support for citizens and businesses, and also provide of remote government services, because we have many paperwork and stamps for government administration. So we cannot digitalize as quick as possible for their needs. So this is our failure. And so this root cause is from not organized processes in the government administration, and also our immature infrastructure. So, and why this kind of issues are happening is that I think we are lack of digital ID and other uniform applications in the government. And also we don't have data exchange infrastructure connecting with each system. And also, as I mentioned, we are lack of IT capability inside the government. So I think we need to tackle with these issues now. And so now we are trying to revamp digital government in Japan. And I think there are 3 ways to tackle with these issues. So first one is, not to mention, I think we need to reinforce IT capabilities by introducing professionals from the market. And also, we need to break the silos by designing uniform infrastructure and the applications, because there are a lot of silos inside the central government, and also local governments. So we need to break up this kind of situation. And I think we need to have strong leadership by doing so. And also, so as we learn from COVID-19, we need to accelerate open innovation of government services by collaborating with IT startups and civic techs. I think the case I mentioned is a few cases we experienced. However, I think we need to increase this kind of cases more and more. And now, actually, our Prime Minister declared quit his job, and maybe we will have a new Prime Minister in a month. And a candidate who are supposed to be Prime Minister mentioned that he wants to create an agency for government digitalization. So maybe we will have agency for government digitalization in the next cabinet. And if we can create that kind of agency, maybe we can accelerate our digitalization in the government. So I'm so excited about that kind of situation now. And so I think, we need to hack the government from the inside and the outside. So that's my message. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Hiroki-san. I particularly liked what you said about civic tech, and that's definitely something I want to ask about during the panel session later. But for now, I would like to invite Talitha on screen. She will share how GovTech Singapore built digital solutions quickly to adapt to COVID-19. Talitha, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Just give everyone a second. Okay, great. Hi, everyone. So my name is Talitha. I'm a product manager with the Open Government Products team in GovTech. And today I'd like to share about this question: how can we build digital solutions quickly to meet urgent needs? So just a bit about me before I dive straight in. I'm a product manager, and what this means is in my day-to-day job, I work with engineers and designers to build products. So these products include Redeem SG, which is a solution to track redemption of goods and vouchers. It was used in the mass redemption exercise in Singapore. If you go to the vending machine, it's actually connected to our system to make sure that every Singapore resident gets their quota. I also work on PaySG, which is a solution that I'll talk about later, and I work on Parking.sg, which helps to digitize parking payments. Before this, I was a policymaker and futures researcher, and I also helped to establish this Open Government Products team. A bit about the team as well. So we are an experimental unit, and we aim to build technology for the public good. And the genesis of this is really to envision an organization that operates like a modern tech company, but works on public sector problems. So ultimately, we want to build products that are much more easy to use, make much greater impact, but also that are down less often, more secure, and take up less taxpayers' money and build much faster. So at the start of this year, before COVID hit, this is what our stack looked like. We have 4 key areas of focus. Firstly, making data a lot more open. Secondly, digitizing transactions. Thirdly, making information much more accessible. And fourthly, making identity a lot more private. And so that was before COVID hit. And after COVID, as you can see, there are a lot of more products that we came up with. And the only reason we were able to do so is we drastically trimmed the time it took for the first rollout to the public. Typically in government in Singapore, it would take more than 4 months to build a product, from the time it was conceived to the time it actually gets to the hands of the public. But for us, we took between 4 days to 4 weeks. And this is no mean feat. And so the big question that I'm hoping to understand and share with you today is, how can we build solutions quickly to meet urgent ground needs despite operating within a large organization? So in the Singapore government, we have more than 100,000 people, and it's terribly difficult to navigate different stakeholders. So this question is extremely pertinent for us today. So to answer that question, I'm going to share with you the story of how we started PSG. So PSG is a solution that enables digital swab tests and stay-home notice payments. And through this story, I hope to share with you the principles of how our organization operates. So the story starts in June, when this COVID task force team officer asked us for advice on how to digitize payment for incoming travelers. They just wanted a simple system. And so the immediate thing is on the next day, we held a meeting with them. And the first two questions we asked was, what would be the impact on travelers if agency did not have this product? What are some alternatives? And through the meeting, there were lots of things that we discussed, from, oh, we need to digitize because we are a smart nation, or, oh, agency X requires this or is considering this proposal. And really, through more than an hour of understanding different agency workflows and needs, we arrived at the root problem, which is that not that it needs to be digitized, but travelers would need to otherwise change cash and not be able to pay remotely before they enter the country. So we asked, why do existing solutions not work? Well, it has taken months for us to be able to deliver such a solution because there's time taken for procurement, scoping, and building. And the policy was going to take effect in 2 weeks. So what is needed? We saw that a few payment links were needed, and it would take a few days. And so we said yes to solving the problem. And that was day 12, 12 days left, sorry. And so in the next couple of days, we continued to talk to agencies to try and understand the problem. There are lots of features that they requested for, from multiple payment methods like PayNow, PayLah, integration with agency portals, auto-triggering refunds from their portals. And with this long feature list, we then arrived at the two key things that really made a difference to the traveler. So firstly, a payment link that references the entry application. And secondly, the receipt with listed items and the identifier to track who has paid. So now that we have prioritized and narrowed down to what we have built, the why we were able to do so is because of the core principle of addressing the core problem, not a range of problems. Now, we often start building products by listing down all the nice things a product could do in government. And so this is actually not an intuitive thing. The reason why we list down all the things we could do is because we have good intentions. We want to solve many problems. We want to be inclusive and include all the stakeholders' needs. We want to instill confidence that things could be better, and we are ambitious and want to deliver a good product. But the reality is this: there are urgent needs on the ground, and we would not have been able to get things in the hands of the users if we didn't trim things down. And so this core principle is one that our team lives by. Now that we narrowed down to the core principles and know what we need to build, the team built a prototype in 3 days, just about 5 of us, including 3 engineers. And the end-to-end flow looks something like this. The user fills up a form, then they'll receive an email, click on the payment link, and the user will make payment. So 3 things are needed: taking the input in, getting a payment email, and the user making payment. And this was only possible in 3 days because we used off-the-shelf services. So firstly, Form SG was what we used to build the form. This is a solution that Open Government Products built in-house, but actually it's an off-the-shelf system that any agency could use. So this was used to take in the user payment info. And then we used Postmark, which is a system that allows us to deliver emails reliably, to make sure that the emails don't go to someone's spam box, for example. There were also ready templates that we could just take off the shelf and use, so we didn't need to do our own system. And lastly, we use Stripe, which is a payment provider that provides payment APIs that we could write on to create checkouts. And they also provide us an admin dashboard. So we built this prototype, and we didn't even have a dashboard, we didn't have a login system, we didn't have even a database, and all using off-the-shelf services. So this is the second principle, using off-the-shelf solutions where possible. Now, maybe a lot of startups, if you're in a startup, this would be just very natural for you. But for governments and large organizations, we have the tendency to commission custom-built products. Some because maybe they don't meet the workflow or security requirements. But the reality is actually a lot of these companies, they have invested in building such services to meet the needs of customers like ourselves. And they're highly functional, highly secure, and perhaps we could use them just with a little tweaks to our workflow. So this is the second principle. Now we have already had a prototype. Still, we didn't have our final product. We thought it would take a few days. And why? It's because there's so many different stakeholders involved. So there were varying workflows across the user flow. From the time the user fills in the information, what other info do we actually need at the point of application, to the time they receive their email, to the question of how many products are there, what do they cost, to which bank account does the money flow to. And so we really needed to talk to all the different agencies and consolidate requirements and finalize the workflow across agencies. So it's often said that digital transformation is not about technology. Indeed, it actually requires all of the stakeholders to be on the same page for us to take them in and really come to a consensus in the workflow to improve things. And so we take the initiative to solve the problem and not just digitize. So this is the third principle we live by. So now that we have already come off the prototype and agreed on the workflow, we did some testing and polishing when we had 3 days left. And PSG today, in the 2 months since launch, we have now about more than 45 million payments that the links have enabled, more than 30,000 successful transactions, and more than 8 agencies or ministries using PSG, just a few links. So 3 core principles: address the core problem, use off-the-shelf products, take initiative to solve the problem, not just digitize. And so this is not just something that PSG uses, but across our team. So first, address the core problem. Well, this is something across our products that we use. For example, for parking.sg, it came about because coupons are such an inefficient and cumbersome way to pay for parking. You needed to tear the paper coupons. Redeem.sg, tracking redemptions was so time consuming. It used to take people writing and striking out names or NRICs down on paper and it's prone to error. Thirdly, Isomer, why we came up with a website template and a content management system is because many websites didn't meet usability standards. Secondly, using off-the-shelf solutions. Actually, if you look at our team's processes, from publicity to hiring to alerting and monitoring, every single part of the chain uses off-the-shelf systems. And this drastically boosts our productivity. Thirdly, taking the initiative to solve the problem. So this is a bit subtle. It involves really looking out for unintended consequences of digitization. So for example, we wanted to digitize vouchers to save the cost of paper vouchers. And it involved us really going down to the hawker center, really talking to the users, seeing how they interacted with our systems, and being willing to shelf designs or even products if it doesn't work. And so this part, taking the initiative to solve the problem, is really about listening to the user and understanding their perspective. So again, these 3 core principles: address the core problem, use off-shelf products, and take initiative to solve the problem. And this is only possible if we empower small teams to make these choices for the public good. This is the team that, well, we just took the initiative to build PSG, even though we were working on other products. And thank you. If you'd like to find out more about our team, you can go to our website. It's open.gov.sg. And thank you for listening to this sharing.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Talitha, for sharing the core principles underlying Singapore's successful COVID-19 response. And next, we've heard from 3 fantastic speakers from government. Now, please join me to welcome Sunil, who will be giving the private sector's perspective on using data during the pandemic.
Thank
Sunil,
you.
take it away.
This is really interesting conversation so far. And I think 2-3 different aspects of business or government agencies across how they're using various government services to make them more agile in the current pandemic situation. So I'm just going to take a step back and look at how we are looking at transforming the various data coming from different agencies, and how do you kind of help them to build these new age services or activities so that we can look at this pandemic in a different way. Before I get into that, this came up. This particular report came just last month, which was done by Facebook and Ben & Company, that 5 years of digital transformation was done in 2020. So the expectation was we'll have 300 million consumers, digital consumers by 2025. which we are going to hit by end of this year. So it just this entire year has just fast-tracked how digital transformations were looked at, and what we are expecting to happen gradually over next 3 or 4 years, it just happened in the last 9 months. So very staggering data and information and enormous pressure on every IT infrastructure, which is supporting this digital transformation in a very short time. But what does that mean from a government organization point of view? And Pure and Meritalk, we did this research with different government agencies, and 3 things have come up from there. One is in terms of what are the key challenges we see. Security, of course, I think, Hiroki-san, Talitha, as well as Ms. Sandra talked about this extensively, that, how do you make sure the security is intact, data sovereignty, as well as data privacy has been taken into consideration. But if you have to look at this, getting this data together and making sure that it's available to us to provide a particular type of information, we need to have a speed of access and quality consistency is a 2 key factors that has to be taken into consideration. And that will help us to kind of look at more AI and analytics kind of projects, which are kind of fundamental backbone of this. What people are saying, and what we looked at from a Pure point of view, is what we're calling is a more hybrid data-centric architecture. And if you see what Hiroki-san talked about it, I think Japan, they encountered this issue about data exchange infrastructure, or what Talitha talked about, having an agile, immediate infrastructure available in the backbone as a data-centric architecture, so that they can pick up certain data from within the government infrastructure and then link it to certain public cloud providers and bring certain particular app, which is more citizen-centric service. And that shows very well. I know we all use parking.sg and so on and so forth, and that really change our life, make it very easy, but make it simple, easy, and cost-effective, so that you're using taxpayers' money. And this changing environment, citizens are really looking forward to how government can help in this process. So I'm not going to go more technical into this, but I want to just show how we are helping a lot of government agencies or people who are engaged in this pandemic situation to build a data-centric architecture. The first example I have is this. Recently, we just built this for McMaster University in Canada. This particular professor, he kind of looked at how to look at this data, which is coming from various genomic data sets, and which doubles every 3 months. That's like a massive data set and growing so rapidly. And you have to bring it together, making sure it's available in a faster data-centric infrastructure, and then you analyze it to kind of prepare that research and take it forward. Obviously, with the pandemic hitting us in March, the whole priority shifted towards how do you make sure your research is supporting this particular pandemic-related activities. And we don't have access to what kind of research they're going to. I think that's really a government's prerogative in terms of how they present it. But they kind of present to us that how this infrastructure has helped them to build this very quickly and bring that COVID-19 related fight against global health and against COVID-19 to forward in terms of having better access to data using this particular infrastructure. You want to just change and bring it much more closer to home. I think we just did this with Macau University of Science and Technology, short form MUS. I think the idea was for them initially when they started looking at having the infrastructure was to come up with more AI-ready data center. And AI-ready data center means a lot of things, a lot of people, but basically they're looking at how this can help in creating some smart healthcare, smart city, and network-related activities, which looking at SARS-focused countries related to Greater China. But then as the pandemic hit, I think they pivoted the focus in terms of how should we first look at doing some research around the data which collected in Greater China and the SARS countries from COVID patients. And I think they're doing some research on that. Professor who leads this particular activity, Professor Zhang, he's a very active personality in this market in terms of presenting his research, and he just published research around the first research they have done around COVID-19 last month. It's available publicly on the internet. You can Google and find it. But the other thing we found that we recently had to one of a Korean GISD, which is the Genomic Institute of Science and Technology in Korea. They were interested to find out more about it, and he was more than happy to come and discuss that with us, and we arranged that conversation. So any of you wanted to know more about this, we can arrange this to kind of help you to understand how Macau University is trying to do this in South Asia and North Asia region. Changing track, I think taking it to Europe again and a different continent, but this was more going into more deep analytics. And I think this particular unit in Central Europe, in the defense center, basically we're looking at how do you move on from a older traditional data analytics infrastructure, which is, if I have to just take certain names, about 10-15 years back, it was more on a compute-centric, high-performance, cloud era kind of analytics infrastructure, which is very popular 15 years back. But it doesn't work in the current IT-centric multi-cloud, containerized environment anymore. And the new architectures have emerged. And they wanted to move away from there, and they kind of chose different analytics platform, and they wanted an infrastructure to support that part of it. So we kind of worked with this new analytics platform they built and helping them to migrate from the older analytics platform to this new platform, as well as making sure that provide necessary infrastructure to support this activity. So they just went live last March, and I think they're now, it's a completely different initiative, but I wanted to highlight we are seeing different uptake and this change of architecture purely because of what Talitha talked about in terms of the new age architecture or agileness required in the infrastructure to support these new activities and analytics, so that you have better insights into your data and you take better results and decisions based on your data insights, what you get. So that's the approach been kind of looked at by these customers, and we kind of supported this particular defense unit. Just taking change in track, and I know it's different. This is a Volvo company in Sweden, but I like what they're doing, and my interaction with many governments in our region, especially here in South Asia, Singapore, Australia, and many other countries, mature economies, they're looking at automated driverless system and their impact on government and how that should work. We already have implemented a solution with Zenuity, which looks at ADAS, which is a short form of the system, which is a Volvo car company. And this joint venture looks at how this autonomous vehicle software is going to work. There's a lot of data points, data analytics being involved in terms of when you gather data, when you map particular road, and then you bring that data together, and then you analyze it in the back end before you kind of put it in the software. And Zenuity has done that for Volvo, currently being tested in Sweden. A huge public reference for both us and actually Zenuity. And then they're now taking it to other markets as well as their parent company in China and bringing that forward. But I wanted to show this reference to here the agencies as well, because we see this coming up in some key matured governments or countries in our region as well. And a lot of research or activities already been planned with agencies like LTA or similar agencies in other markets in Asia Pacific. So very interesting example, and I thought I should just highlight and bring that to you. So why are we talking about this? And I'm not going to get into what Pure is. We are a 10-year-old company, but our experience is, our plan is to bring modern data experience. We've been kind of rated very highly by all analysts in terms of bringing us very specific, high performance-centric activities and infrastructure, which is more new age architecture and data-centric. And we have a very high net promoter score because we work very closely with a lot of governments and across the industry. And I'm just talking government here, but whether there is any other industry, a lot of customers where we have helped them to have this kind of new age modern data experience, and how we can help some of you in terms of just building a simple data centric architecture. And I think we have 3 examples today, 3 different agencies at a different level been talked about, how Denmark as a city has looked at it, or how agile data Go kind of setup is there to look at parking.ag kind of apps, or just a simple digital transformation, what Japan is doing, what Hiroki-san talked about. And we kind of help expedite that process because, as I said, that whole experience had changed, and everybody wants that right away because the pandemic had changed how we're going to work going forward, how we are working. And today I'm sitting in my at my home and just presenting this to you. So I think we need a different infrastructure to support that. And me and the global team or Asia Pacific team here in Singapore, as well as with Pure, can help in that process. We work in as a service approach, so that just works from a commercial model point of view, in sync with how you're going to have a customer-centric or a citizen-centric pay-as-you-go model. I think we kind of approach and adopt that to take it forward. And making sure that's our DNA, having a consistent, scalable performance to support any digital transformation you've been looking at. So many customers in the region who can come and explain to you how they're doing it, or our team locally here, we're more than happy to come and engage you on that front. So with that, just wanted to bring that experience to you. Thank you again for your time and making sure that we kind of work together to give you the next generation of AI and real-time analytics to support your citizen-centric activities going forward. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sunil. Thank you for painting us such a vivid picture of the potential that data can have for government. And I think right now I would just like to invite all our speakers back on as we move on into our panel discussion. I would just like to start on the topic of civic tech. Hiroki-san, this question is for you. So during the pandemic, we've seen citizens stepping up to help build some of the solutions across many different countries. And of course, Japan is one of them. So what are some of the things that the Japanese government has done to make citizen collaborations easier or even possible?
Yeah, so actually, we continue to engage in civic tech community. So for example, so we have Call for Japan, which is one of the biggest civic tech group in Japan. And they are doing many events for citizens to introduce their concepts for citizens. And they try to involve many citizens for civic tech activities. However, we also diving into such kind of activities, and we are communicating with each other for a long time. And I think such kind of relationship works in this COVID-19 situation. So because it is a little bit difficult to collaborate with civic tech before COVID-19 because we are very established organization. So there are some firewalls between civic tech and the government organization. However, I think we could break out such kind of walls in this emergency. So I think such kind of long-term relationship works in this COVID-19.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you for that. And Ambassador, I would just like to direct my next question to you. So what are some of the things that allowed Denmark to design its digital services around citizen centricity? What are some of the discussions that you had, perhaps some of the team structures that you had to reshuffle or rearrange?
Well, I think it goes back to the slide I was showing about that we started this journey back in 2001. And back then already it was really, well, there was a lot of citizens are not that comfortable with the whole digital approach because this whole idea of what happens to my data and my information is really quite at the center of the Danish discussions. So I think that the whole approach of putting the citizen in the center and making it first and foremost, it has to be of use for the individual. That has really been a key principle, and it's really the key for the success of this. So it wasn't new for the COVID response. That principle was already very well established and has also led to a lot of positive experiences. As I can also say that as a citizen, in the way of acting, the whole digital platform that the government has given has worked for many along the way, and therefore it's become easier and easier. And I like that was also some of the points Talitha made, right? That it has to be, you have to solve the problem, you have to make it easy, and you have to look at the negative sides along the way. And I think if you do so and you make sure that from the citizen or the user perspective, it works, then we are all ready to be more and more digital. So that was an old principle, but I don't think it caused a lot of new teams to be formed. I honestly didn't sit close enough for the development process to say that. We have a digital agency already, so happy to share our experiences on that with Japan. But so there were already a lot of digital teams. But I have to say the team in Singapore seemed particularly agile and out of the box thinking. And I just hope I have colleagues in Denmark who are just as agile, but I've only seen the results.
Wonderful, thank you. And I think that ties in very nicely with my next question for you, Talitha. I understand that GovTech follows a Spotify model. So they have a lot of small teams comprising of designers, developers, operations. So they come together to work on specific objectives. So how has this model allowed OGP and GovTech to respond faster during the pandemic?
Yeah, I think the main reasons why we are able to respond quickly is somewhat what I shared earlier during the presentation, which is the focus on the problem and really also some degree of autonomy to make certain product decisions at our level. So for example, apart from seeking management's approval to go ahead with the product, a lot of these little decisions and bring people together and deciding what to do moving forward and building it, a lot of it, we have the autonomy to do so. And I think that's why I think my ending message about empowering small teams to do so, I think is one key factor. I think the second factor probably is just the people and the emphasis on learning and really building capabilities within the organization. So I think even before the pandemic, this was something that we have done within the team to enhance cross-functional knowledge. So, for example, engineers will learn from designers, learn a design course, designers will take an engineering course, and the ability to talk so fluidly within the organization enables us to build things a lot faster, because a huge part of IT projects break down it's more because of the communication and all the different layers of how it comes together and pieced together. So yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. And Sunil, let me turn over to you right now. What are some of the key steps that governments can take to begin to make the most of their data? I think Sunil might be facing some technical difficulties at the moment. Oh, he's back. Sunil, you're on mute at the moment. If you could just unmute yourself. Okay, I think Sunil is still facing some technical difficulties. I'll move on to the next question for now. Hiroki-san, I wanted to ask you, how did Japan identify the opportunities to work with the private sector?
Okay, so actually I belong to Ministry of Economy, Trade, Economy and Industry. So we have many connections with private companies and usually communicating with each other. And so we are very keen on new techs and new companies emerging in Japan. So that's why we can access which IT startups have what kind of products. And yeah, we can utilize such kind of services for public sector very quickly. So I think that kind of capability is from our ministry. So yeah, our ministry's position. So I think that is the strength of us. And actually, yeah, our ministry is very flexible organization, and we are tackling with core problems in the perspective of the economy. So that's why, yeah, we can collaborate with any stakeholders, and yeah, such kind of culture is very important to collaborate with private companies.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Hiroki-san. And I see that Sunil has hopped back on. So Sunil, I'll bring that question back to you again. What are some of the key steps that governments can take to begin to make the most of their data?
Yeah, I think, and I think everybody touched upon it in their own sense. That Ambassador talked about it. How the city as a Denmark city looked at it. Finally, having that multi-cloud data-centric architecture is the key going forward, and it's just not possible with the existing setup what you have in terms of in the backend to link to a multi-cloud architecture. I think different people refer it differently. We call it data-centric architecture. We call it data hub. But I think a lot of new activities or new citizen-centric initiatives are based on a lot of AI or analytics, you need to do a lot of real-time analytics, and you need to bring the data across, which is available from so many years across different government agencies. We work very closely with government archives, and they're used to talking about the data in kilometers, right? We have 5 kilometers of data. That's how normally government refers to their archives. And we are saying a lot of that data is digitized now, which is available and can be used to look at different activities. Very quickly, because of the pandemic, a few departments have taken kind of priority. You see life sciences related activities kind of taken priority. Healthcare system is kind of struggled in some countries, irrespective of whether it's developed economy or not. But at the backbone of that, from a technology point of view, we can really support to have that kind of a data-centric approach. So engaging a new way of thinking is all of a sudden taking a priority. And we are very happy to see that, and our local team can vouch for that. But a lot of customers are asking, calling us and saying, how can you help in this front? And that's why I kind of shared those examples like Macau University, where a lot of these people are open to share their research and how they're doing this new age architecture and how they can help and support, because we all are new to this. I think this is an unprecedented situation happened, is a once in a century kind of a scenario. And we have to just look forward to making sure we all work together in an as-service model, keep it more cost-effective, and support in the right direction to have that agile infrastructure. And I think that's what Pure is here for. I'm more than happy to kind of discuss more in person with anybody who's keen to understand more on this front.
Right. Thank you so much for that. I just wanted to do a very quick fire round to end off our discussion for today. So we know that the pandemic has shaken up the world as we know it. And some are even saying that we may not have a post-COVID world. We may have to learn to live with it for the rest of our lives. So moving forward, what are some of the things that you remain hopeful about? Talitha, maybe we could start with you.
Yeah, I think what we've found extremely encouraging in the past few months is just like the many people who came forward to volunteer. So during the pandemic effort, we opened up an idea sprint, and literally there were 300 people who came forth with like 70 proposals. There were also 600 people who signed up to volunteer with us in GovTech. So I think just the community efforts that are happening make me really hopeful.
Fantastic, amazing. Ambassador, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it has really helped all of us to use the technology that we already had. We didn't even, now we talked about new apps that and platforms that were invented, but we already had all these platforms for communicating and having events like this. And we just didn't use them the same way before. And now we know how to use it. I have to say, I also missed some of the personal contacts. I would have loved to have a chat with my fellow panelists afterwards here in a room together. So it also shows us some of the things that we can do when we get together in the same room. So I think it has shown us the possibilities, but also some of the limitations.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Ambassador. And Hiroki-san, what about you?
Yes. So it's very sad to say that many people realize Japanese digital infrastructure is very poor, and now we realize we need to invest in such kind of digital infrastructure. So, however, I think many people notice we need to transform our government by using digital technologies. So I think we have such kind of hope now, and we should just do it. Yeah.
Fantastic. Sunil, any last words for the audience?
I think the way we are operating, the way we're doing business has changed. I was used to being on the plane, 2-3 weeks a month, and now I'm for the last 7 months sitting here in this room and talking to my customer partners and everybody. I think that is really going to have a big impact in terms of how we're going to operate going forward. Our definition of what business or travel for leisure is changing. We are okay to have a smaller step in that direction as well. And I'm more looking forward to how this digital transformation is, and as was Hiroki-san talked about, or how Talitha is talking about these things, how we can give smaller, simpler steps to the community and citizens. I think expectations are changing around this. So we're more looking forward to that going forward. So
thank you so much. That's a lovely note to end our session on. And now that's all we have time for this afternoon. We've had a wonderful discussion, and I would like to thank all our speakers for sharing their insights with us today. We have another session right after this on understanding complexity, so stay tuned to that. And thank you all for joining us. We'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.